So we're talking today about readiness for secondary. So that's going to be your kids that are 11, 12, 13, and those, and then onward, upward from that. So, if you're not familiar with Arise, Emma and I are the co-founders. And so you can see that between the two of us, we have been home educating quite a lot. We have a pack of kids between us, and we have just a variety of different experiences and passions, and where our degrees have focused and have allowed us to be able to bring all that together to partner with home educating families in Christian home education, both in the UK and worldwide, Europe, Africa, and North America as well. So let's just jump right into the English language readiness in home education. And that's the KS3 level. So that's going to be your 11, 12-year-old. So one of the key pieces, just as an overarching concept, is that we're wanting to help our children learn to communicate with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And they will get there, and it is a journey for sure, but that's the goal. And it's the goal every year, but it also increases and expands over the years and grows in depth. But it's also not just an academic subject. It's the formation for communication and comprehension and expression. And for those of us that come from a Christian home educating background, we really have a passion for showing our children and shaping them in how to understand and speak, to speak well about the world that God has created. And so that's really, when we boil it down, those are the basic pieces that we are pursuing as we set our sights and our goals for what do we want to accomplish with English language. So typically, the focus for these KS3, which in America would be the middle school years, okay? In the UK, it's those early secondary years. So it's basically there's going to be reading comprehension that is going to continue to develop structured writing going from basic paragraphs to more complex paragraphs to multiple paragraphs and then longer organized essays as well, where there's going to be grammar and punctuation and sentence control, meaning knowing when to stop a sentence and it's good as it is, and moving on to communicating in a new sentence the rest of your thought and ideas. And then, of course, an increase in vocabulary and a growing ability for spoken communication and discussion skills as they move through those secondary years. So, before we take a look at how to set up the readiness assessment for English at home, there's a couple things that you need to just keep in mind. And these are the signs that your kids are ready to take a look at this KS3 level for English. So one is, are they reading at the age appropriate texts independently? And that one, each of these might have some learning differences issues. So if you have a kid with dyslexia, then maybe you're using audiobooks, but are they comprehending then what they're listening to at an age appropriate level, or greater? That's what you're looking for with that. Are they able to summarize what they've read in their own words, whether that's verbally or written? Can they write or dictate clear paragraphs with a middle, a beginning, and an end? Can they use basic punctuation correctly most of the time without autocorrect? We all make mistakes, and so we'll just say most of the time. And then are they able to express their opinions with some type of supporting explanation? So um, for this younger KS3 level, you might find that they're able to connect, like, for example, they might reiterate or communicate that they completely understood the author's intent in conflict when one character said to another, and then they quote something from the text that they're reading, or they read aloud something or write it within the paragraph and that type of thing. So that's being able to express an opinion or move in that direction. All right. So then let's take a look. Let's switch gears a little bit now, and we're going to take a look at just some tips before we look at the actual piece for the English readiness exam. You can see that I have 9 there. Essentially, you want to choose a calm, low pressure environment with no distractions. Quite often, like in the picture, it's the kitchen table. That whole setup that you see in the picture might actually be too distracting for somebody with the clutter. It might be for me, or if I were with one of my kids. And so just, you know your kids and you know yourself, and you know what you'll need to create um, an environment that is low pressure, low stress, without interruptions and assess and distractions for just a few minutes. It's probably not going to be too long, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. So you want to do the, like it says in the second there, do the assessment over multiple short sessions if you need to. Okay. So you're not going to sit there for an hour and a half working on grammar and that kind of thing. It's not like sitting the SAT or sitting a past paper or something like that, where it's going to be a really long, exhaustive test. It's nothing like that. It's just pretty short and pretty concise. So you'll want to read the instructions out loud if needed to reduce the cognitive overload. And so that helps you, especially when we look at it specifically. You'll see that I'll talk about doing the first one together and then letting the student move ahead on their own to do the second one and see how they manage once the ideas have been introduced, because the pieces of the assessment for English might be a little bit new and a different approach than what your family might be used to. All right. Um, Warm-up conversations. This one is actually really important, and it's probably where I struggled the most, because as the parent, I've been thinking about, when am I going to do this? I've reviewed the information. I've thought about it a little bit here and there, and I'm ready to jump in. And the child may not have been involved in any of that process. So make sure you have a little bit of conversation about what it is, what you're doing, the purpose of it, and then just talking about what, maybe like, what do they remember that about grammar or writing that they learned over, the past year, or what do they like about it? Just some entry questions um, to get the topic going. And then step back and observe without over prompting to see how they're doing independently. And that especially would be within the second exercise I'll show you, rather than maybe the first one. But do see in that first one, if they need more clarification, then certainly offer it. But and they might, but you'll see when we get to that what I'm talking about. So then encourage, allow for some spelling support if it's necessary, and encourage. Again, calm, encouraging, just kind of wrapping up the school year. I often would do this type of thing either right after a morning time together where we would all be together. So maybe after breakfast or right after lunch, whichever is their best and freshest time for these different subjects. And then that's helpful. It's a nice segue where you stay at the table, you just move to the next thing, and you spend a few extra minutes on this instead of something different for the day. So ultimately, with English, our goal is to let our speech always be gracious. So language learning is discipleship in clarity, truthfulness, and expression. And so that just carries the theme of our education as discipleship, which is our theme over the summer and into the new school year. That carries that through with that Colossians 4:6 verse. All right, so if you want to scan the QR code, you can do that, and that will take you to the PDF, and you can download that for yourself. I'm going to bring up the PDF here and go through that. And I would say, if you have questions along the way, I am going to open the chat up here and move that over here so that if you have questions, I will hopefully see those in the chat. But let's jump over here to the document. So this is the one that we're using for the KS3 grammar. Okay, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger So we can get rid of a few things here so it's better and easier to see. So for this part of the KS3 course, for the English grammar and writing course that I am the tutor for, we will be using Fix-It Grammar. So it just makes sense for us to use their placement tests and to help you walk through that. So as the parent, you're going to want to read through the document and read through these different pieces and familiarize yourself with them. Take a few minutes before you actually introduce it to the student, okay? So couple of the things you're going to want to do is when you get to the the day one, this is day one information, day 1 and 2 and test 1 information. So keep the first one conversational and go through each one, asking your student to look at the bottom of the page here in the day 1 section. And you want to, when I teach this course, I have my students have 2 colors of pens. That's the IEWA for Fix-It Grammar. So maybe a black and a blue or green and red, something that is going to work well for what they have. No pencils, but regular pens for that. And so you're going to want to say, can you put 3 underlines under the letters that should be capitalized? And step through each of these. Choose the correct homophone, add the correct end mark to the sentence, and then identify the following. So let them do each one of these and just see how they're going about doing it, where their thinking process is, have a conversation. If they don't remember what a noun is or an article or something like that, you can bring up some definitions, can look those up or help them remember, and go through all the way through number 6. So you would underline the prepositional phrase and then bold a word that, and just remember that the bolded word is the vocabulary word. You might ask them if they know what it means and move on from there. And then in the second on consecutive pages coming will be the corrections and like from the teacher's manual. So this first piece, I want to scroll back up here, is from The Nose Tree. This is the book that we will be doing. And The Nose Tree is actually a classic fantasy fairy tale. And so it fits that piece of that not overly boring or dry things to work with. They end up going through and using sentences from this book to create the story. And at the end, they will have the story rewritten in their own hand when they do the writing part of the assignment as well for each day. And you'll see it's in the test, they don't have it, but they are asked for each day's work to rewrite the sentence correctly. So that is a piece of it. So they'll look at the first one, you'll go through the first one with them, and then you can sit down and correct the first one together. And that's what this looks like here. You can see they put the paragraph mark because there's an indentation indicating it's a new thought or idea. The 3 underlines for the capitalization of the first letter of the sentence, the end mark being the full stop, and then going through and identifying the nouns, the pronouns, the who, which clause. And that might be something that is a different way of identifying it, but if they can identify the who or the which, then they've got it. And then you have the verb, the proper pronoun, and your other nouns and verbs and adjectives there. They may not get it all correct, and that's going to be okay. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to get it all correct, especially because it's a new format when you're using this. But go ahead and go over with them what the fixes were and the grammar notations. And if there was something that was incorrect, then you can go and ask the questions and find out the answers and step through in a conversational fashion to find out where their understanding was at. Okay. Then the next day or the next one that you do, you might decide that you've gone through it quickly enough that you'll do both pieces in one day. The next time is to just do the same thing with sentence 2, okay? With sentence 2, though, I would like you to give it to the student and ask them to do it on their own, to read the instructions and to go through and do what each item says. Fix-It Grammar is really built, as is the writing curriculum, on following instructions. So they need to be able to, even if they need a little bit of support, to be able to step through each of these. And I would just say, as they step through each one, just have them put a check mark next to the one they know they've completed or they think they've completed. And if they're struggling along the way, just let them know to just ask you for help and just see how it goes. And then you'll be able to come down again and answer the day two, look at day two together, look at how it was not diagrammed, but parsed, and all the different pieces identified. You can talk about the vocabulary word, and then for yourself, you'll be able to go on and continue through the end of the document to see where your student really sits with the grammar piece, because the grammar really is that foundation piece. If they're doing well here, then they would move into year two of a Fix-It grant of, I'm sorry, the KS3. But if they're struggling here, that's okay. That tells us that they would need to start at the year one. Okay. So that is the Fix-It grammar piece. So let me just switch back over here, and I just want to make sure, yep, I've got everything there for that one. So these are the instructions. They'll be in the slide deck that I send out just to help you remember the things that I've said in the video about how to go through that first document using the nose tree. Okay. So for the writing skills, for this early KS3 level, what you want to see is, at a minimum, can your child easily write an opening sentence, a concluding sentence, and a paragraph with several connected supporting sentences? So a real proper paragraph. And then can they, with planning, research, and an outline that they've created, write a 5-paragraph report or essay? That's going to indicate the highest level, that would be like a KS3 year 3 level. If they're able to do that, they are in the perfect position to be ready to consider the IGCSE English course. Otherwise, they really need to be down in that KS3 level, because that's where they will be learning all these pieces. By the time they get through KS3 year 2, which we offer 1 and 2 this year, they will be doing this longer essay with 5 or more paragraphs. And that is to prepare them for doing that more repeatedly in the 3rd year, depending on their age and their skill level, and then setting them up well for the GCSE coursework there. And when it comes to the style of what they're doing, are they using strong verbs and descriptive vocabulary, really quality adjectives and adverbs? Are they using clauses, using words like because or who or which? Are they using prepositional phrases and those kind of things to just tease out a sentence and go from the cat ran down the road to being able to describe something about the cat, something about the road, something about how they ran, maybe why they ran or where they were going, and being able to take that very simple sentence and expand it out into a broader sentence or even a broader idea through a paragraph about the whole thing. So just as an example. So the key here with the writing and the grammar is that both of these are allowing the student to communicate ideas clearly, organize information logically, and express themselves with increasing maturity. And that's what's really necessary as they move ahead into those upper secondary years. All right, so that's English, and maths readiness looks similar but different. Okay, we're still looking at what are these basic components that they're going to need at the KS3 level for our students to flourish once they get into that upper secondary upper secondary level. So what you're wanting to see from math is do they have number fluency and calculation confidence? Are they able to work with fractions, decimals, and percentages interchangeably, really? So can they take a fraction of 1/3 and they know what the decimal representation of that is, as well as what the percentage, how those would be written differently? They should have had a little bit of a basic, easy introduction to algebra, geometry, and measurement. And they should be working with problem solving and reasoning skills. So those are what are the building blocks that are accomplished within this KS3 level. I may have alluded to it being before they get there, but that's incorrect. This is really what they are doing within those 3 years of KS3, this middle, early, lower secondary math pieces here. So with that, let's take a quick look at what we have next. So these are the signs that your child is ready. Can they recall multiplication facts with growing speed? And I'm going to drop into the chat a blog post that just came out this morning that's talking about some of these things. You might be going, oh no, they can't do that. Oh dear, they're not doing that yet. Or they really struggle here. You know what? That's really okay. That happens. Everybody develops at a different pace. But there, Emma did a blog post, and so that's in the chat there for you recently, and it's been turned. She's done a podcast and a blog post where she talks about how to help in certain specific areas, like if they're not recalling multiplication facts with growing speed, how can you help support that? If they're not solving basic multi-step problems on their own or with gentle support, what can you do? So take a look at that blog post later, because it's really helpful in helping decide if they're here in the KS 3 years and you find that there's some learning challenges within math, where do you head? And that's what that blog post is going to help you understand. Okay. So some of the other things that are signs that they're ready for KS3, for this early secondary level, they're able to understand place value confidently. They can work with simple fractions and equivalencies, and they can explain their thinking verbally. So they may you may see them write out the answers long form on a paper, and it's okay to ask them to explain that to you. So these skills form the foundations of nearly all secondary level maths. So whether you're doing functional skills or you're doing the GCSE or you go into the accounting class or any of those other pieces, these are the basic fundamental pieces that a student needs to have a good grasp of in order to feel confident at the next level. Okay. All right. And then these are the signs then if you're looking at, is my student ready for GCSE level maths? These are the things that you are going to want to take a look at. They may be ready if they are able to solve linear equations independently, like x plus 5 equals 12, if they can manipulate fractions, ratios, and percentages fluently, if they can use and add formula without prompting, if they can interpret graphs and data correctly, if they're showing structured work with clear reasoning, and if they can tackle unfamiliar problems without immediate guidance. So that's just that idea of are they able to give it a go and get started, even if they don't necessarily make it all the way through. They're working through the problem solving process with that. Some of the signs that might show that there's more time needing to be spent at the KS3 level would be if they're avoiding fraction questions altogether, if they're guessing rather than actually calculating the problems and working the problems, if there's difficulty applying math in real life situations, like if you ask them to double the ingredients in a recipe, can they do it properly? things like that. And if there's a lack of confidence when working independently, if it's just really a struggle, then it's okay then to decide, you know what, let's spend another year at this KS3 level, gain the confidence, figure out where the student is stuck, and then move ahead into those GCSE maths, those higher maths courses as they are ready, and you'll have a better understanding and determination of what kind of path for maths would be but most appropriate for the student with that, because there's lots of options when it comes to maths. And quite honestly, if they're going to do GCSE maths and not necessarily go on to A-level maths or some of those higher math classes, then it's okay to slow it down and to do it at a pace where they're really grasping the basics, okay? So when we're looking at moving through the readiness assessment for the math portion, you just, again, you want to keep it relaxed, no test language. It's not really a test. We're just looking to see where things are at so you can best decide where to step next, because you really want it to be a step into just gaining confidence in their skills. So the idea of using everyday context like shopping or time or recipes, that can help reduce the anxiety. If you need to use scrap paper or manipulatives like counters or blocks or number lines, that's fine too. So one of the key pieces as the parent is to watch the thinking process, not just the final answer. How do they step through the thinking with the work that you're giving them in this assessment? And how are they showing their work, and how are they verbalizing that to you when you ask them to explain it to you? And if you need to, go ahead and split it into more than one session, just like we talked about with the English. And rather than offering trick questions of some sort, you want to just offer similar type questions. And you'll see that in the readiness assessment that we've put together, it's just 11 questions. And those 11 questions actually highlight the section with the tick boxes that you'll see above it in the maths section. And it's really key to just note where they get stuck, not just where they succeed, because the goal here is to find where the gaps in learning are, where the struggles are, so that those can be unreleased and dealt with before they move into the more difficult math, because they move into more difficult math without the confidence and understanding of the basic pieces. It will be really challenging and possibly quite stressful. So those foundational pieces are exactly that. They are super foundational. So how to know, is your student ready to move from KS3 to GCSE level, or that upper secondary or early high school? If it's US, that would be like 9th and 10th grade is equivalent to the GCSE levels, okay? So it's going to depend on their conceptual understanding, not how old the student is, okay? Just because they are 14 doesn't mean that their brain has developed, because we all develop at a different rate, that their brain is developed enough to make that leap to what's expected at the GCSE level. So keep that in mind. I know from my own experience, back in the day, I was not ready for this high school level of math at the age that it was presented to me. I ended up taking an extra course of math in high school just to make sure I was secure in it. So it is reality that happens, and that's why it's okay to let that student take the math course last. If you're sitting an exam, do that one last if you need to. So the other piece is their independence in problem solving, and is their ability to apply the maths that they've learned in unfamiliar contexts. So in a problem that's maybe rearranged a different way and that type of thing. And then confidence in multi-step reasoning. So multi-step problems and being able to write it out and be able to explain it. Those are the keys that will show you that your student is ready to go from KS3 into the GCSE level. And with at Arise, what we're really particular on and really want to support families with is this fact that just because your student is 14 doesn't mean that they should go into the GCSE level. If they need another year, it's okay. Don't stress over it. It's better to have maths that they can step through and understand and build a strong foundation with. And then the following year, or when they're ready, be able to look at the GCSE level. What you want to have is that easy plus one type of idea as you're going through the maths. So just like you have a fiddlehead that unfurls and shows all its glory as a fern in its proper time, it's also important to remember that God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. And math reflects that order, structure, and consistency in God's creation. So as the fiddlehead unfurls, it shows the beauty and the order and the structure. And we want that for our teens as well as we step through, helping them create that solid foundation in English and maths. So let's take a quick look. I'll give you a second there to grab the QR code. And then I'll go ahead and move over to the maths assessment and show you briefly just how it's set up if you haven't had a chance to look at it. All right. So in the maths assessment, let's go up here. Don't stress out that this is 22 pages, okay? Because it has a letter at the beginning, and then we come in and there's some blank pages and that type of thing. So let me make this just a little bit bigger for you guys. There, that should do it. So the way we have set the maths assessment up is we've given the key skills that are identified like in the place value, powers, and operations. These are the skills that would be identified as for where they're at. But these are the math problems that show those skills. Okay, so you'll want the student to do the problems below the sections. Don't worry about this too much at the beginning, but it just does help you if you're trying to understand the different pieces of how they coordinate together, basically. And it's the same for each section. So then there's fractions and decimals, and then a few problems to work out to go with that. And then there's measurement, data, geometry, and coordinate planes, and a couple problems to go with that. So we've really simplified it. We don't expect you, the parent, to know necessarily, is your student able to work out elapsed time and solve time conversion problems? You may already know that, you may not, but if they can do the problems below, you will know for sure and be able to identify where their strengths are at and also where their weaknesses are at within this, because they may be really strong in one section and have some weaknesses in a different section. So you'll go through and you'll have them do the problems there. There's just a few there. And then the answer key for that lower secondary piece is on the next page. So we don't have you trying to figure it out for yourself. We've got the answers there for you. And then it moves on into the upper secondary. So this would be the GCSE level. Those first pieces are KS3 level. These other pieces are upper secondary. And again, you have the concepts and then the math problems that go with them. And then so on and so forth for each section. And then the answers, okay? So with that gives you a really good sense of, by the time you finish that, of where your student is at, what they can do, what they can't. And then that will help you identify which course is going to be the best for them or which level within the KS3 courses or up into the GCSE courses. So let's move on back over here and just talk about just a few things to wrap up. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer those. So just as an encouragement, just to remember that kids develop at different rates. Readiness is as much about age. Actually, it's more about that. It's more than just their age. It's about their consistent practice, confidence building, and steady progress through the subjects. Okay. And so when you're looking at these things, remember the checklist that is within the readiness assessment piece. It's not about pressure or comparison. It's really just simply a tool to help you break down the different sections and see where their strengths are at, and then also see where the gaps are or where the weaknesses might be. So prayerfully assess where your child is currently thriving, and then make a plan for where they may need a little extra time, a little extra support, maybe some extra practice. And just remember that if you're unsure, you don't have to guess or rush. You can assess it with clarity and with peace. You can pray over it, and we're here to help you understand um, your students and your child's next step and help them make that step with confidence. So one of the things that Emma has done for the math section, especially since she wasn't able to be here today, is to let you know that if you find that your student maybe just needs a couple tuition private sessions to just tune up a few weak areas before as they're jumping into the next level, whether it's the next level in KS3 or to really confirm that they're really solidly ready for GCSE, and you want to do that over the summer. She is taking private tuition over the summer. And so you can organize that with her. You can send us a message and we can organize that with you. You can see the QR code there for the different maths courses, and we'll put the links in the email that we send out afterward to find those on the website. And then over there on the left, you can see all the resources that we have available, both live classes as well as PDFs and different types of things for the different levels of math that you see there. And then for the English, you'll see the different courses that we have available there. So the grammar and writing year 1 and 2, and then the GCSE English language year 1 and 2, and then the writing with integrity and accuracy. And then there's also English language and literature resources. There's some workbooks, some literature study guides, and those types of things that are on the website as well. And equally, if you have a student who needs a bit of a tune-up on the grammar and that type of thing before jumping into the school year in the autumn, then I would be happy to carve out some time to work with that student, and you can take a look at the private tuition as well for that. So the English courses are also listed on the website. We'll give you that link. And so just remembering that by intentionality teaching writing with integrity, by intentionally teaching writing with integrity, home educating families can equip their children not just for exams, but for life. In a world full of shortcuts, integrity will always stand out. And that's what I found with my students in their journey through learning to write well, is that if they do it with integrity, they learn the right way to write, they learn to not use AI inappropriately for assignments, that they end up standing heads and shoulders above the others because they're able to think well and to act well with integrity and to problem solve and to communicate well. And that's the key. That's the key that we want for them. So again, we are offering the free 20-minute coaching sessions for academic coaching. So if you go and you do your assessment, your readiness assessment with your kids, and you're like, okay, I've done this. Now what do I do? How do I make the choices? That's a great opportunity to go ahead and do a 20-minute coaching session if you're not quite sure which courses to pick or what path to take. We're happy to help you with that, or any other reasons that you might want to talk about academics for your student, whether it's trying to put a timetable together that's specific to their needs and you're just not quite sure how to do it. If you have questions about online education or the differences between the UK model and the US model, all those are things that we can help you with. So do take us up on this offer for that. That will be through July and may slow down in August as we're beginning to get ready for classes, but we'll keep it open as long as we can. All right. And then finally, we just want to let you know that we are thrilled to be able to journey together with you. Some call it the Goldilocks method, and others call it the easy plus one. You heard me say that earlier. The Goldilocks method is that idea of getting the the difficulty in their learning to be just right. So that easy plus one, it's not too hard, it's not too easy, it's just right. But at Arise, our goal is to build strong foundations for academic excellence with Christ-centered guidance. And so that is what we offer to you, and we are thrilled to be able to partner with you in the coming school year. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now and take any questions.